Life with Regina. When Regina speaks, everybody listens. So happy to have you join us today. Today, our topic is When Women Lead, Children Thrive. I love that. When
That's good.
women lead, children thrive. We are celebrating the National Reading Month and Women's History Month. Today, I have with me my guest, Naomi Dunson White, and she is going to be speaking to you on reading literacy, as well as being a committed woman to our children thriving. Isn't that something? So, welcome.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And as I mentioned, this is National Reading Month and Women's History Month. And you are live streaming on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. You can look for us on Facebook as well as YouTube. And so let's get right into it, Naomi.
Sure.
I'm going to read your her bio. So I have Naomi V. Dunson White, who is the owner of Naomi Books LLC and provides excellence in editorial, writing development, and coaching services to the self publishing community. She is an experienced book editor and writing development coach who strives for the highest standards of excellence. She guides her clients in creating the most enjoyable reading experience possible for their audience. Naomi is an advocate for diversity and inclusion and take immense pride in amplifying the voices of diverse writers. Through her work in editing and coaching, she helps prepare them to publish their stories, to inspire or entertain others, build their businesses, or leave a legacy for the next generation. Naomi enjoyed presenting to students, educators, business professionals, and organizations about the affirming personal and professional benefits of embracing and sharing their stories. Woohoo! That sounds really
Thank you.
wonderful.
It sounded good with you reading it.
I have had the pleasure of knowing Naomi well, half my life at
Okay.
this
Yeah.
point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
Yes.
It's
Wonderful.
been many, many years that we've been friends. And I was excited to really have you on to talk about this topic. It is really dear to my heart, particularly growing up in a neighborhood where people really had to struggle
Yeah.
struggle to exist. I grew up in that neighborhood. I have to admit my struggles wasn't as many as people in my community, but one of the things that my dad was all about was education.
Right.
And even though he had a third grade education, my dad was all about education. And so this is an exciting topic for us to talk about. But when we think about it and talking about it, Naomi, we are also talking about survival, aren't we?
Sure.
Yeah,
Literacy.
we're talking about mental health, and when someone can't read, they can't fully participate in life. Yeah, and that takes a toll, not on just them, but also on all of
That's
us.
true.
Yes. So tell me, how did you get involved in literacy?
Well, as a child, I was an early reader,
Yes.
the baby of the family, but I was a quiet child. And so reading was my love. And if you were looking for me, you could find me in the corner with a book or somewhere with a book. And I spent a lot of time reading and developing a pretty good imagination. But reading was comforting to me. That was my safe place. Um, and I didn't need anyone else. I could just read. So that's where I developed it. And I developed a love of writing, starting with my love of reading. And the two go hand in hand. You know, when a child really falls in love with reading,
Mm-hmm.
writing, I'm not going to say it comes easy,
Right.
but it's a natural flow. It's a natural transition because with their imaginations, they start thinking, like I did, well, what if there was a different ending? Or what if this character was this? Or I could write this story. And I began writing like that just
Uh-huh.
from my love of reading and learning so many different things from my books.
And so, would you say that your love for reading and writing um, really assisted you in working with other children because you knew the impact it had on your life?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. And it's really sad for me, having worked so many years with children, teaching children to read and teaching children to write. It literally breaks my heart when I hear a child say they don't like to read, because that's really not the truth. There's a reason. If they're saying they don't like to read, they might be struggling. Most times I find that's what it is. They're struggling with reading. So, of course, they don't like to read in front of other people. And unfortunately, that's what teachers will expect in a classroom. So a lot of times it's everyone's taking turns reading. And sometimes children are acting out because they don't want you to call on them to read out loud because they're
That's
not
very
reading
true.
well. They don't want to be laughed at. They don't want to be embarrassed or picked on. So when I hear children adamantly say they don't like to read, I know that there's a reason for that.
Yeah, that's very true. And well, share with us how literacy then built confidence in kids.
In children,
Yes,
literacy is empowering, especially when if you're working with a child who is struggling, and then that light bulb comes on, and once that comes on, they just start flowing. You can see it in their attitude, on their countenance. They just feel uplifted because reading is everything. It opens every door. It opens every door when you think about it.
so going back to that conversation you were just having, so kids being afraid to be called on, they believe they're going to trip over their words. As a matter of fact, I get a lot of kids who are shy now.
Yeah.
Shyness is huge, and one of the fears is being called on to read.
Hmm.
And you're right, the kids are afraid that if they're called on, that they're going to be considered weird, they're
Yeah.
going to be made fun
A
of,
lot of them are.
and a lot of them are. Um, and now they even have these stories running through their heads about how this experience is going to be for them. And so, what are some of the things that you have encouraged kids to build their confidence and to be okay? Because you're right, teachers want to see you read out loud.
Hmm. And it's a milestone, so I can't blame the teachers, but it just doesn't work for everyone. It's not a cookie cutter situation, and we have to think about the emotional impact on the child, because okay, let's say the child can read, but getting to that point, they've been emotionally destroyed because of their fear of reading or because being picked on or being behind. So I'd rather have the whole child well, right? So
Mm-hmm.
reading out loud isn't everything. It is a milestone, yes, but it's not the goal at the risk of the well-being of the child for me. For me.
Yes.
So if I'm working with a child who has struggles reading, I think the materials that we pick have a lot to do with it. So I'll go back to what I said about when a child says I don't like to read.
Okay.
Okay, if they're adamant about it, that's a cue for me.
Okay.
They may be struggling. But
Okay.
sometimes children are like, I don't like to read. And I want to know why. And I have found that one of the reasons that a child might state that they don't like to read is they don't have any materials that they can relate to. Now, that's
Mm.
going to take us to diversity because that's
Right.
usually what it is in our community.
Right.
Okay. If you want a child to want to read, to enjoy reading, even if they're struggling to learn to read, you have to put materials in front of them that they can relate to. So that's why I go on my spiel about every child needs to see characters in their books that look like them or someone they know, right?
Yes.
We need pictures, characters where they can see themselves. So when I go to schools and I ask the little ones, when I say you should see yourselves in your books, do I mean your picture should be in my book? And they'll go, no, these are like little first and second graders, they get
All
it.
right.
They'll say no, and I'll say, tell me what I mean when I say you should see yourself in your book. They know what I'm talking about. Somebody looks like me. Exactly.
Yes.
Now
Somebody
we're
looks like
interested.
me.
Okay, this kid looks like me. I might want to read this, you know?
You know what? I want to see me on Hallmark cards.
Of course.
I want to see me in books, and I want to see dolls. And I have always felt that when parents didn't reach for those type of characters
Hmm.
for our
Hmm.
children and gave them, well, it doesn't matter, I mean, white, black, green, yellow,
It
just long
matters.
as a child has a doll. I never agree with that.
Yeah.
You can speak to that.
No, I agree with you. It,
Yeah.
it matters because there's a connection that
Yes.
happens, right? I'm not saying that a child can't read a book about another
Hmm.
culture or have a doll that doesn't represent their culture. But to me, that comes after they have their own culture.
They
Okay.
have their own
Because it
culture.
has something to do with how they see themselves. That, and when a child doesn't have a book, when a child doesn't have several books, many books that show them and their culture in a positive way, that kind of speaks to them that they don't belong or they're not important. Or
Oh,
if they
most
see
definitely.
themselves in a negative light, like
Yes.
some that that hurts.
Right.
I'm grown, you're grown. We know how old we are. That would hurt me. If I see my culture represented negatively, I get angry. I don't like that. But I'm grown and I can kind of work through that. A little
Yeah.
child, what are you saying to them?
Yeah. And sometimes grown-ups can't work through that so well. We have bought into the narratives. A lot
Yeah.
of us have bought into narratives that society has put out there about us. And I can remember when I talked about uh, African Americans killing one another,
Okay.
doing these type of things. And Barbara is her name, and she's a librarian. And she said, every community does, Regina.
Mm.
I need you to think about that. And I thought that was so powerful. As a
Mm-hmm.
matter of fact, it was her that made me slow down
Mm-hmm.
and do more critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Across the board
Right.
now, it's important for us to think. And so you're right. We can, kids, when they see themselves, they can feel valued, seen, and empowered. But if they only are watching gang banging on television, and that's the only way that they're seeing
Yeah.
themselves, that's the impact
Yeah.
that it's going to have.
Yeah. That's a whole nother message now
Yeah, that's a
that we
whole.
have to fight against, right?
Yes,
Right. But when you
yes.
see it, when it's occurring naturally, when a child picks up a book, if you're trying to teach that books are an important part of life and books are a part of everything that we do, and the books that they see have children in them that look like them, then it's a more natural flow where they'll be more attracted to the book and may want to engage with the book.
Hmm.
That's another way of helping. Another thing that I like to do is find out what the child likes and
Very important.
make sure
Yes.
that those reading materials are appealing to them because it's topics that they like. For
Right.
example, if a child likes to cook, a child likes to be with you in the kitchen, get some cookbooks and let them know they can come in the kitchen to help you as soon
Hmm.
as we can go through this recipe,
Yes.
and have them read with you, and
Yes.
show them that again is like what you were saying. Literacy is everywhere. It's in
It's
the kitchen too.
everywhere.
It's in the
Yes.
kitchen too because you need a recipe. You need to be able to read,
Yes.
right? You need to be able to read in order to shop well,
Yes.
you know? And so I like to make sure that the child has books and different types of books that speak to their passions and their interests because it will help them to want to overcome those hurdles in reading and they'll engage more with the text. And I have found that to be very successful.
Very, very successful. So, am I also understanding you to say that books, reading, being able to read and engage in characters that are more like you, would you also say it built character?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
because
right.
you're proud now. You're feeling more confident. And we're not saying we don't want them to see any other
Right.
cultures
Correct.
because in my book there's all I tried to represent many many children as I could. But there's something about you having confidence in you that helps you build your character.
But I think that's across the board, right?
Yeah.
Diversity. So when you think of it, you think about in terms of white, black, Latino, right? I mean, just across the board, being
Yes.
able to see you in
You have
books,
to. You have
you
to.
have to.
You have to.
And I think that's very important.
Right.
And doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, I walked over to a mother. I was in Costco's, and it was a Caucasian
Mhm.
girl. She had a black doll.
Mhm.
I had not seen that.
Oh, okay.
And so I walked over to the mother and I said, "Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you so much for that because I see it often the other way around."
Yeah.
And she
That's
said,
touching.
"My daughter wanted this and I did it." I said, "Thank you. I'm so happy to see it
Yeah.
because she is raising her daughter to see
Yeah.
diversity, even with the dolls,
Even with the dolls.
even with the dolls."
And
And so,
that's representative of real life.
yes, that is representative of real life on who her mother's going to connect her with,
Yeah,
right? I thought that was so powerful. And
it is.
I had tears in my eyes. I
Yes,
was like,
I
"Thank
know. I
you."
was tearing up when you were saying it a little bit. That is beautiful.
Well, let's talk about the lack of access and technology distractions. educational disparities. That's huge, and you brought some statistics.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Technology is wonderful, but it is causing a lot for teachers, educators, parents to contend with,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like we have to compete, with all the bells and whistles and shiny objects,
Mm-hmm.
so many things, audio visual. Now, of course, there are audiobooks. Audiobooks are great for a child who is already met the milestones in excelling in reading, because they can just listen and engage.
Okay.
But if you're making sure you're working with a child that needs a little bit of assistance, or making sure that the young ones are reaching their milestones, they need to see it in print. And to a child who's, let's just say, some of them are addicted to cell phones and
Already.
tablets and video games. If you say, "Oh, here's a book, let's read," they're, of course, they're like, "No, I'd rather do this because this is more exciting."
Mm-hmm.
So, teachers, educators are having to come up with a lot of new ways to engage children and distract them literally from technology, to
Yeah.
just sit and read a book. So when I go to classrooms, it's a blessing to just see the children sit down and engage with me over a book, a printed book that doesn't make any noise, and it doesn't have any flashing
Yes.
lights or anything like that, but we can just talk and engage about a story.
Well, you're right about that. Technology is taking a toll on our children.
Hmm.
But I often wonder, is it that we need to do a better job of incorporating it, Naomi?
Mm.
But I just heard you talk about milestones. Let's go there for a minute because I love what you said. The milestones first have to be met. So, what would that look like if a child was in kindergarten and you have introduced them to this technology, this bells and whistles? What would that look like for a kindergartner?
Well, for a kindergartner, think about it. It's not just reading, it's also learning how to use your hands to manipulate pencils and
Okay.
crayons and things like that, right? And they're used to these. You see babies on these now.
I know. I saw a baby
Oh, yeah.
fighting for the
Oh,
phone.
yeah. Scream and holler if you take it
Yes.
away. And they got that finger. They know how to swipe. They know how to do all
Yes.
that. But can you hold a pencil? Can
Okay.
we just work on holding a pencil,
Right. Can we
right?
work on holding the pencil?
Because
That's
you're
right.
doing this all the time, and it's technology and it's fast and everything
Okay.
moves. If you slide here, you get your next screen. There's milestones that children still need to meet without technology.
Without
The
technology.
technology cannot help you write your ABCs.
Okay.
It just can't. You can recognize them because you see them on the screen, but you have to know how to see it and know what it means and know what sound it makes, how to move your lips and your tongue. That's not anything that technology can do for you,
Okay. Very good.
right?
So technology can serve as a hindrance, and you're right. You ought to be able to feel and touch things with your hands and pick up things and
And
even
right.
and right, you have to be able to do that. And I'm also imagining that maybe parents are not really thinking about that because you have a lot of working parents,
Yeah,
and it's easier to preoccupy a child with a device
you're right.
rather than to go get a book or to read or have them reading or and so I think it becomes what's easiest.
Yeah,
However, one is more harmful.
yeah, yeah, it's true. And I don't want to make just disparaging comments about technology, because we all use it
We all
and
do,
it's made our life easier in many ways, and it's great.
and it's
And
great.
so many times now, you see the educational industry is merging technology with education, because they can see that if you give children a choice, they're going to choose the exciting, flashy lights and sounds and all that than something just on a piece of paper. So now you see all these wonderful educational apps and the things, you have the whiteboard in the classroom
Yes,
that is interactive. So all of
yes,
these things are helpful. But again, I go back to those milestones too, the
yeah,
reading milestones. There's a stage, and I speak about this a lot. There's a stage with children where they transition from learning to read to reading to learn. So this up to about third grade,
mm-hmm.
children are learning to read. So they're engaging with all the materials, they're learning to read. When you hit third, fourth grade, now that your teachers are expecting you to be able to read to learn, that's where you're looking for information. You're
Mm-hmm.
inferring. What are you getting from
Yes,
the information? Are you able to articulate it back to someone what you just read? That's where comprehension and these types of skills are coming in. And if the child is not making a smooth transition from learning to read to reading to learn, that's a very critical stage.
Okay.
Because once this happens, you're rolling along. And teachers have more than one child in the classroom. So if you have a
Correct.
child who's not getting over that area to get to the other side, at that point, that's when things can drastically go downhill.
Wow.
And it's very difficult. It's harder to get them back and get them back to whatever it is they missed, because now you got to go back here and figure out what foundational skills did they miss and help them to get over that. And in that age, if you think about it, children are a little bit self-conscious. So that's when we're seeing they don't want to read in classroom, we're going through all those things that we talked about before. So that's
Okay.
a very, very critical stage. So you really want to make sure that your child is ready to meet that milestone. Because
Yeah.
on the other side, it just piles up. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? If they've skipped something and they're not doing well with reading, well, reading, now we're going to science class. Well, you have to read in science class too. Now we're going to this class, we're going to that class. You have to read in math.
You
You
do.
have to read.
Correct. That is correct.
So it's a it's a critical place, but it's just it has a lot to do with social emotional development too.
Exactly.
And I'm really, really keen on that with all my children's book writers that come to me. That is something that I drill. Tell me where the social emotional learning opportunities are here. Where is the social emotional value for the
That
student?
is so important because it's not just academic,
Mm.
right? It's emotion
Yep,
and it's mental.
it's well being.
You know, let's share some of the statistics
Sure.
because I have some questions about that.
Okay. I usually follow and share the information from CCBC. It's the Cooperative Children's Book Center, and it's from the University of Wisconsin Madison in their School of Education. So since 1985, they've been gathering data on children's books, on the
Okay.
children's book industry. And as they've gone along, they've broken it down further and further into different cultural groups. So I would like to say first, we've made a lot of strides, especially in the last decade,
Okay.
in children's books being more representative of different cultures, but we have so far to go. And I don't think people understand that because you'll see more books now that have Black children in it, for
Mhm.
example,
Mhm.
right? Many of those books are from self published authors, which is why I work so hard to make sure that we're excellent, and that we're where we should be in the industry, just like the traditional books, so that children have a choice. Not only do they need a choice, but they need to have choice of a quality book. We don't need books that haven't been edited. We don't need, you know, uh, subpar illustrations. We need excellence in front of our children. So they need to
Mhm.
see their culture being represented in an excellent way, just like other cultures, right? The problem is that traditional publishers are not always on our side unless we're celebrities.
Okay.
You can have a celebrity, oh, so and so is writing a book and it's a bestseller tomorrow. Well, yeah, I'm sure it is because they have the status to do something like that.
Mhm.
And just their name associated with a children's book, it's an instant success. Then you have people like me, we don't have the name recognition across the world, but we are also trying to make a difference in the lives of these children. So we self publish and pay for everything ourselves
Correct.
to get these books out to the children. There's no
Mhm.
New York Times bestseller because we're not big like that, right? But our books have value, right? They have
Yes.
value.
Mhm.
So they've gotten this data together. I think is excellent. I'm just going to read you.
Yeah, please.
Let's just go back to 2024. So
Okay.
every April, the new statistics come out. So um, this April 2025, they'll give the statistics for 2024.
Well, will we?
Yeah, well,
I'm just really,
don't
I
let's not
mean,
get started.
we don't have to, but I'm just
No, you're
asking, will
right.
we really get it? Because this data that you're speaking of has been very
Yeah,
helpful.
this isn't federal data though.
Okay.
So
So
we're
CDC,
gonna act
the
like they
reason why I
don't
said
exist.
that was CDC, you said. So
Yeah,
it's not federal.
it's a no, it's a children's. I believe it's privately funded.
Oh, great.
CDC.
Okay,
It's through the
good.
University of Wisconsin.
Okay. Okay.
They
But
have
a
been the
lot of
ones.
they receive a lot of their monies
We
federally.
might want
Yeah.
to check.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, I'm not saying that it can't
We're
be,
just living
but
in that world.
yeah, yeah,
That's where we are. That's where
right.
we are. So
That
that's a good
is. So
point.
I was just wondering.
I will check. I hope it's state funded,
I
but
hope so.
we'll
I
see.
hope so.
We'll
Yes.
see. So let's hopefully get the new data in April, right? So it'll be for the prior year. So it's
Yes,
always for the
yes, yes,
prior
yes,
year.
yes.
So these statistics here for 2024, out of the books that they produced in the United States, these are all children's books. Out of the ones that they gathered and collected, there's 3,622.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a
Okay.
lot of books in our
Okay.
country for children, right?
How many did you say?
3,622.
3,622.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Children books.
Children's books, right?
Okay.
So out of 3,622,
Okay.
459 of those books had characters that were black.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. 102 had characters who were indigenous.
How many?
102. That comes
102.
out to 2.8%. The
Wow.
original people of this country.
Hmm.
681 Asian.
Okay.
That's 18.8%.
Okay.
Okay. And they give you the statistics like who the author is and what who the characters are, right? So let's see. In Latino, 284,
Okay.
about 284. Yes, characters about Latino characters. Pacific Islanders,
Hmm.
7. That's horrible.
7 books?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
And Arab American or Arab, 34. That isn't even
Wow.
1%, by the way.
No. That's awful.
Now, why is that? Why? And the rest of them, we already know that's the dominant culture, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. The rest of them, so,
Just
right.
the rest of them.
Yeah. And they're in the thousands.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So here it says diversity stats 45% of children's book feature white characters.
There you go.
There you are, right
You
there.
add
Yeah.
all these up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just 13% feature black characters, even fewer feature um, Latinx, is it?
Latinx.
Yeah, Latinx, Asian, or indigenous.
Right.
Yes, and that's
And
pretty much what you're saying.
yes, and
Yes.
this year you probably don't have the 2024, but
No, no.
this is the first time we've gotten above 15%
Okay, so
for
it's
black
15%.
African
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's just
Okay.
2024 though.
That's
Those are
just
the newest ones.
2024.
Yep, yep, yep,
Okay. No, this is 2023 statistics.
yep.
It's saying.
13.4%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. That is saddening. And so it really needs more children books from us.
Yeah, and
Uh
we have to do it. They're not going to do it.
well, and why? Yeah.
That's why I work as hard as I do to reach as many people to write diverse art, black and brown people. You need to tell your story. Either tell it for yourself, leave it for the children, right? Or
Yes.
tell it to the children. Like write a children's book,
Yes.
that has value. Our children need to not only hear our stories, but they need to hear us and see us telling stories for them.
Yes. That is so true because right now I'm in a school and I'm doing self-esteem, building positive self-esteem and positive self-images of ourselves. And these are majority of African
Mm.
American girls. And when I tell them my struggle in school and the things that I participated in that hindered my education, what I'm watching them do,
Hmm.
and I say to them, the choices you make today are going to impact you in your future.
Yep.
I just really want you to understand that. And today I went to the school because I go there to do individual intervention. And I got so many hugs from the girls. They were so happy to see me. I wasn't sure how they were receiving the information, but all the hugs
Hmm.
told me
That's
everything.
nice.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah, because
great.
it
Yeah.
sinks in, and it's consistency too. Children respond, not always to what we say, but
Yes.
how we
But
treat them and how we
yes.
show up for them.
Yes.
So they may the first couple of visits, yeah, they might have been like, "Oh, who does she thinks she is?" or "What? I don't want to hear that." But you're consistent. You keep showing up.
Well, that and I validate them
Hmm.
because it's going back to what you said earlier, right? That if kids are told, well, read this book, right? but they're not being validated in things that they like to read,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to make that connection.
Mm-mm.
Kids have to connect um, where they are. And that's all
Yeah.
ages, even adults.
Yeah.
We need to be validated. So I tell them, I find truth in what they're saying. Well, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're right. They hear that often. Well, you're
Mm-hmm.
right for me because I want them to understand I can hear some truth in what they're saying.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they're not wrong.
Right. It doesn't mean their behavior is always right, but there may be some truth in what
There's
they're
some
saying.
truth in what they're saying. And I
That's
think that's
good.
really
That's really
important for
good,
us to
Regina.
engage because what do you would you agree that literacy also it helps build empathy?
Well, yeah. Yes, it does. And it starts with the picture books. It starts even there. And again, when a child can see themselves, beautiful. When they can see themselves and others, even better. And that's when they learn to have empathy and to relate to other people. Seeing them in the books, it really helps.
Yeah.
Because if you're reading a book to a child, you're also giving a little commentary on the side.
Yes.
So, like in this one page here, I have all these different cultures. So the children see that and they start picking out the children. But then I'm also talking like, oh, look at all of our friends here. Look at all these different friends. Do you guys see anything different about these friends? Oh, this one is that, and this
That's
one has
nice.
this. And I'm calling them friends, and they're picking out differences with a smile. Is anything wrong because this child is in a wheelchair? No. Oh, what is she doing here in the wheelchair? She's playing with her friends. Oh, yeah. She's in a wheelchair, but is she smiling? Yes.
That's great.
Okay. She can play just like everyone else, right? Yeah. And
That's
then they start
awesome.
picking out all kinds of
I
things.
know, right?
But now they've just they've made me see that they can have empathy for the child in the wheelchair. Not to point at
Yes.
her and, laugh or what's wrong with her, but
Yes.
she's a friend, just like the
Yes.
rest of these friends here you see on this page. And
Well,
she's laughing and smiling right along with them.
well, I want you to introduce your books.
Mhm.
And so you have written actually three books, right?
Three.
Three
Yeah.
books. And so you brought two today.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so there's one book that says, Why Am I Here? A child's book about purpose.
Hmm.
And so it may be a little transparent, but it's a child's book about purpose. I have bought this book several
You
times.
did. You certainly have. A big
Yes,
supporter.
yes, I love this book. I
Thank
love
you.
kids to know where am I, why am I here, and this book does a really good job of sharing
Thank
that.
you.
And
We
so
ask
let's talk.
ourselves that question, don't we?
Yes, all the time. People are trying to find their purpose in life, and so share a little bit about your book.
Yes. So it's a story. The illustrations really bring the book alive. And Megan White, she's also from Detroit. We worked. We spent a lot of time on the text. The words,
Hmm.
and I really wanted the book to be understood by children who couldn't read yet. Just
Okay.
from looking at the illustrations, I wanted them to be able to glean a lot of the meaning, what I'm
Okay.
trying to say. So she really is wonderful. The pictures are vivid and
They are
bright,
beautiful.
bright. And so I start out whimsical and fun, and it's a rhyming book. And we're just talking about using our imagination
Okay.
first. And then I start leading them into an understanding, using your imagination about it starts with, why am I here? Where will I go? I have a feeling that somebody knows. And it ends the same way. The
Okay.
last
Okay.
page of the book says the exact same thing. So by the time you get to the end, you're wondering, yeah, well, I can go anywhere and I can do anything. So why am I here? Somebody knows, right? Who is that somebody? For many children, they'll tell me it's God. Some say, oh, it's my mom, or it's my dad, or
Okay.
it's my nana, it's my teacher. And I tell you, by the time we finish with this story, so many of these kids blow me away. When I say, who's your somebody? They'll go, me. And I'm like, see, Lord, that's why you gave me that message.
That is
That's what it's
awesome.
all about. It's
Yes.
in here. Each
It's
one
in
of us
here.
have a purpose that we were gifted with when we were created by
Yes.
God. And we all have a purpose, and my purpose is different than yours, right? But it's okay. I have something that I'm supposed to do, and my gifts I'm supposed to bring to the world. So that's what this book is about, is to plant that seed with these children to let them know they can be anything and do anything, and they're just not here by mistake. You're
Yes.
here for a
A
purpose.
purpose. That
You
is
have a
beautiful.
purpose. Yeah.
That is beautiful. Well, going, you self-published this book,
I
is
did.
that correct?
I did.
Yeah, and in your self-publishing, tell us about that journey and the journey now that you're taking other authors through.
Right. So it was I have to give credit to Miss Elizabeth Mays from Mays Multimedia and now Valley Publishing because I read my story to her
Okay.
and she just was like, "Oh, we are printing this book. You are doing this book. You have to do this book." It was Jahari the Great. And Mays has been in the community for what, 80 years now.
Yes.
Everybody knows Mays, but they don't know that there is a division called Valley Publishing
Okay.
and that she's really building that up now as the she's really invested in the self publishing community.
Is that name after you?
No, but what isn't that a wonder?
That is wonder.
We were talking about that. My sister and
I
I
was
was like,
like,
wait a minute.
what? Wait.
Right. My middle name
Okay.
is Valley.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, so we've been referring clients back and forth to each other for years now since I started this business, and I always say I wouldn't be where I am today without her because she took a
Mm,
chance on me. I had no idea about how to do this, but they handled all of my matters pertaining to my book. But you can self-publish a book and then end up with a book in your hand and not know where to go or what to do.
that's true.
And there's a lot of people out there taking advantage of new
Hmm.
authors, promising them, "Oh, I'll coach you and I'll do this and I'll do that," and they really do get taken advantage of. And they haven't gotten too much farther in the journey than when they started. So
Mm.
I made some mistakes when I first started with my first book, Jahari the Great, and I learned. And I actually built my social media platform. Besides diversity, is just advocating for people, new authors, and giving away information. I shared the things that I learned and what I went through, so other people wouldn't go through the same thing.
Okay.
And I just became known for, oh, you should ask Naomi. You should ask Naomi. And yeah, I'm not going to charge you $25 just to answer a question,
Okay.
even though that most people do. Not most people,
Mhm.
but many people out there do.
Mhm.
If it's something that I can do to help you be better, you're a part of my purpose. This is what my purpose is,
Okay.
and I'm committed to the self-publishing industry and to telling the stories of Black and Brown writers, right? So when you are excellent, that makes me look good too. When I'm excellent, that makes you look good. And when we're all doing the right thing in the right way, that makes this whole industry look better, and we can change these numbers.
Mhm. Right, right, right. So I do want to say to the audience, so she may not charge you for a question, but for her hard
Oh
work,
yeah,
there
yeah.
is a charge. I just wanted to make sure we put that out.
Right.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
You can't do everything for
Right, we
free.
can't do everything for free.
I,
That's
I
it.
did that for a long time. I was like, oh, okay, well, no, we can't.
Yeah,
You're
that
right.
that's it. So I
You're
just
right.
wanted to make sure
Yes.
that I gave
Yes,
that
for sure.
caveat.
And
Yes.
and it's worth what every penny is. I'm going to make sure that I work hard. I do work
Yes.
so hard for my clients. And there's a connection.
Yeah.
I just feel like most of my authors when they leave, we're like family. We're
Mhm.
definitely friends, and
Yes.
they know that if they ever run into a situation and they need an answer, they need help, they will come back to me.
Yeah, and you're right about that. Learning as a first author myself and self-publishing, it
That's
was
right.
very difficult. It was very
It
difficult to
was.
know even how to set the book up.
It is.
And so you're right about that. You learn from your
You
mistakes,
do.
and hopefully, I can't wait till I get my other book going. You have definitely written 3 books.
Well, you got me right
Yes.
here, so you know I'm gonna help
Yeah.
you.
Yes,
We
yes,
worked
yes, yes,
together on
yes.
your book.
We did. We worked together on my book. Well, let's talk about Jahari, and then I need to do a station
Sure,
identification.
sure, sure. Okay, this one is Jahari the Great,
Yes.
and this is the first book that I wrote. Jahari is my oldest grandson's name, so
Yes.
that's where I got that name. But this is a book, again, it's always about literacy. This boy has a teacher who's completely invested in this class, and she teaches the class to use their imagination to write adventure stories. And he tries it, listens to what she says. And there's a line in the book where the teacher is teaching them that life without imagination is like chocolate chip cookies without the chips.
Oh,
Nobody
okay.
wants
Yes.
the chips. That's what makes everything gooey and yummy and delicious, right? And your imagination makes your stories interesting and
Yes.
engaging and fun. So he got it. He wrote and discovers that he's really, really good.
Okay.
So he writes a wonderful story. He enters it in the school contest, and there's some themes there along the way, learning opportunities. He's nervous about reading it in front of the. He has to read it in front of the auditorium. So there's a lesson here about overcoming your fears and doing what you need to do to reach your goals,
Very
right?
good.
So
Okay.
he reads a story, but the interesting thing here is the way it's written. It's a story within a story. So when he's reading his story, I take you into his imagination.
Okay.
So you see him reading a story. It's a mystery. There's a mystery to be solved here. There's a plot twist. It's really fun. But the overall theme of this book is that he had a gift within, and it's up to, I believe that all children have a gift within, and it's up to
Yes.
us, the adults in their lives,
Yes.
to help them discover it.
Yes.
And that's what happened with Jahari, his teacher, his family, his community, how they all come together to help him to realize how great he really is. That's it.
So important. Let me do this station
Hmm.
identification because I do want to say something to that. You are live streaming on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Please do not forget to subscribe, share, comment, and there was four.
Like,
Like, thank you. And like, and you can catch us on, well, actually mine's from 4 to 5 on Facebook as well as YouTube. So thanks so much for joining. And if you're just joining us, I have before me an author. She's called the Queen of Editing.
yes.
Yes, Queen of Editing. And she's an author as well as a coach, an editing coach,
Hmm.
and providing services,
Publishing coach.
publishing
Hmm.
coach as well. That is wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
you know what? To sit across from you now and to see this journey take place, because I was your first client, I would have to think.
You were my first, yes, my first full. Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yep,
yeah,
yeah. When I stepped out, yep. I've
yeah.
been behind the scenes. Most of the things I did behind the scenes before you was the writing. Like I did some ghost writing,
Okay,
and that was
yeah,
fun. But to actually go from beginning to end with a book,
yes,
yes.
yes, and
And your
so
story is fantastic.
I think so, even though
Hmm.
it has a lot of pain with it,
It's
but it is, and I
it
thank
is.
God for it, for where where He brought me from, and to be able to tell my story and to do the work that I'm doing
That's right.
now. So yes, that's
That's
true,
fantastic.
and that's what I was going to say is that when a community, when parents, when teachers can all come together and look beyond what a child is doing, and look for what they actually bring to the table,
Yes. Yeah.
you can,
What's in
that
here?
child, yes, that child can go anywhere in life,
Hmm.
with their talent.
Yeah.
Okay, because I am of the mind with John Maxwell, if you do not have the talent to sing, do not get up on idle thinking you can sing.
Oh, please.
Yes, right. So
Hmm.
go with your talent,
Hmm.
right? I love that. Go with your talent.
Hmm.
And so, but it does take a community to develop that.
It does.
It really does. I remember as a young girl, um, in my backyard, catching the Holy Ghost, as
Oh.
they say, just playing, just catching the Holy Ghost and preaching and going to the mic and all that. But something would happen inside of me. I
Hmm.
knew that that was going to be a part of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Part of
it's,
your purpose.
yeah, I knew that. And so now I am an ordained minister. But just playing that, and just something would happen.
Hmm.
Just that feeling, just I would feel the presence of God so strong as a little girl, and I'm like, "What am I doing? What's happening?"
Hmm.
Didn't understand any of that. So yes, what happens? How we train up our kids are so
Awesome.
important. Yes, and so Naomi, when we think about literacy, I just wanted to even bring this out as well, right? That people with low literacy are often struggling with shame, isolation, anxiety, and low self worth. And so, how do we encourage kids who who have tapped out?
Mm.
And this is where they are. They are just being bombarded with the shame, the isolation, the anxiety, the low self esteem. They get depressed.
They do.
All of those emotions that they're feeling. How can we help that child?
That's probably the saddest thing. Excuse me, the saddest thing, and one of the most difficult things too, because as I was speaking about that that stage from going from learning to
Mhm.
reading to learn, it's really hard because it just continues to grow, and nobody is able to just stop and say, okay, stop with all the milestones, stop with all the rest of the work, let's just focus on this child. That's almost impossible in the school system,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So we have to find ways to give some type of spark and encouragement to these children, right? The ones that we say are, they've just, like you say, just tapped out.
Right.
There's some value in reading somewhere. There's some connection we can make, even if it is through a video game, something, whatever it is they're interested in. We have to get in there and find a way to connect it to reading. Even driving down the street and reading signs, because they memorize. They're
Yes.
not reading, but they memorize. They know McDonald's because of the sign. They
Mhm.
know food, most of the fast food places because of the signs. They probably know gas stations. They're reading signs, but
Mhm.
they're really relying on their memory, right?
Yes.
So we have to know the child. And that's where we started a while back in this
Yeah. Know the
conversation.
child.
You have to know the child because with this type of problem and struggle, it's not, there is no cookie cutter. It's not going to work for each child the same. So that's going to take, like, that's where we need the personal reading resources that many schools provide. But if not in the school, look in the community.
Look in the
There's
community.
usually some type of literacy resource, even for adults. There's literacy programs that adults can go to. And just imagine with an adult having to admit that they don't know how to read. And this is 2025. There's a lot of folks out there that don't know how to read, okay?
I'm glad that you're bringing that up because I have some information here. It says low literacy costs the U.S. over 200 billion each year in lost productivity, healthcare costs, and missed opportunities. So when we promote reading, we're promoting confidence, freedom, and better mental health for
Hmm.
all.
Life.
Yes. And I think we're not making that
I don't
connection.
think people do enough.
Not enough. You're right. You're
Mm-mm.
right about that because $200 billion lost a year. And you think about that. You think about unemployment. You think about the possibility of taking the wrong medication because you don't know how to
True.
read the label. It crosses so many areas
It
of our
does.
lives, and not having that ability to read is detrimental.
It is. And then you're having children. That's a struggle. And what are you showing your children?
What are you showing your
Yeah.
children?
It's one of the greatest motivators for children to read is seeing their parents read.
Yes.
And I have those statistics too. Seeing their parents read and engaging with books. The third book that I wrote is called Is Your Child an Excellent Reader? And I'm
Okay.
speaking to parents and caregivers about unleashing the genius in your child.
That's
Now,
beautiful.
your child may not score. You and I may not score as a genius on the test, the standardized IQ test,
Hmm.
but I'm a genius in my area. You're definitely a genius in your area of gifting. So
Yes.
we have to look at genius differently.
Oh my God. Yes. 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 It is so. We are in a society that does cookie cutting.
Hmm.
That's just it.
And comparing.
And comparing. And it's very narcissistic,
It
to be
is.
honest. And I remember when one of my instructors said that we live in a narcissistic society, that some kids, and I even would say this to some of the teachers, um, I understand that you want both of her feet down on the floor, but can we get past it?
Yeah.
Because she feels like she learns better. If she can that's just how Amanda
They're
was.
not the same.
They're
They're
not the
not. They're
same.
not.
And we penalize kids for
For
not being
not
the
being the
same.
same.
That's
Not
so
being the
sad.
same. Yeah.
It's just sad.
My our youngest is a drummer. That's all. You saw him grow up. He's
Yes.
busy. He didn't like to sit still and quiet like I do when I'm studying or reading.
Yes.
He liked
Yes.
music on and
Yeah,
he's
that's
tapping
Amanda.
all the time, right?
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, we have to let children be children and try to know them and what works for them. It's just not a cookie cutter thing with education, and we're starting to see that more and more.
I do agree.
And
We
more,
starting to
yeah,
see it
more
more and
school
more.
districts are trying to operate in that area, but for so long we just harassed kids to sit still and do it this way. When it's not, it's conducive for learning for each child.
I feel
It's
that way
different.
even about church. Well, I love the fact now that they have these avenues for kids to go to children church and young adult church
Hmm.
and teen church. I think that's so important
It
because
is
to expect them to sit still. So many kids get whippings for moving around in the
in
church.
church.
And as I grew up, I hated to
Oh
watch a
yeah,
kid getting hurt.
yeah,
And so I had started bringing like coloring books
yeah.
and just trying to help the child out to save their life. I'm like,
Exactly.
I
To
can't
save their life.
stand it.
That's
Yeah.
true, but see, we stick with these traditional things and we just don't know better. But when you know better, you
You
have to
you
do
can
better
do better. That's true.
because that's a role model, for the children. But your original question is just it's heartbreaking because it is a struggle. And to me, the key is knowing that kid.
Yes.
And the better you know the child and let them know you're personally invested with them, consistently, we talked about that before, they'll know, they'll see that you at least care.
Yes.
You're not just writing them off
Yes.
as a lost cause.
We have run out of
I
time.
cannot
I
believe it.
cannot believe it. This was excellent,
Yeah,
Naomi. We're going to have you back.
sure.
But I just want to make mention, if Roger can give me a moment, because we are talking about women as well. This is Women's History Month, Women's History Month, Women History Month. And I just wanted to make what we've been talking about women who invested in children.
Yes,
Joan Goss Cooney, she was the one that created Sesame Street. She used TV to make early education accessible, brought diversity and real life issues to children's programming. This was
that's
in
awesome.
1969, I believe,
That's
when she
major.
did it. Major.
I did
And
not
then
know
we
that.
have Marva Collins. She's an educator, founder of Westside Preparatory School. Refused to let Black children be labeled as unteachable. Proved that love and high expectations could unlock genius.
Yeah,
What
see?
you just
See?
said.
That's
Well,
awesome.
tell our audience where they can find you.
NaomiBooks.com.
Very simple.
NaomiBooks.com. Very easy. And I honestly, I believe that everyone has a story, and I am here to
Yes.
help them tell it. So I'm doing more speaking now and asking people and engaging over what's your story? What
Yes.
is your story? And the sooner you acknowledge it and accept it, you can use it and share it.
Yes. 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 So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining. Exhale into life with Regina. When Regina speaks, everybody listen. You can reach me here every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. with various guests. And also, you are live streaming on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. You can go to Facebook or YouTube. Thanks so much for joining and be blessed.